Arizona House Republicans once again blocked a move to repeal the 1864 near total abortion ban that was enacted when Lincoln was president, and I wouldn't be allowed to be here. A separate bill in the Arizona Senate has moved forward, but it will be weeks before they take it up. The 19th century law is set to go back into effect in June. The ripple effects are set to be felt for months. Yesterday, election handicapper Larry Sabato's crystal ball, also my former professor at University of Virginia, the Arizona Senate race, he now says it has moved from being a toss-up to being in favor of Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego actually taking the seat and winning against former Republican gubernatorial loser Kari Lake. That's all because of the abortion ruling. This political earthquake will help mobilize voters in a state that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris need to win. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, another key state they need to win, a phalanx of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. siblings and relatives endorse Joe Biden for president.
President Biden has been a champion for all the rights and freedoms that my father and uncles stood for. That's why nearly every single grandchild of Joe and Rose Kennedy supports Joe Biden. That's right. That's right. The Kennedy family endorses Joe Biden for president.
RFK Jr. also announced that he made it onto the ballot in Michigan, which is like me saying I've made it into the NFL draft, a state Biden and Harris must win, but face challenges with the Arab American community. Alarm bells are also ringing in Georgia, where Biden faces an uphill battle in repeating his 2020 victory. Joining me now to discuss is Rena Shaw, Republican strategist and founder of Relax Strategies, and Alencia Johnson, former senior advisor to the Biden-Harris 2020 campaign and founder of 1063 West Broad. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Now, I'm going to start with Georgia. I was just there. I had conversations with people on the ground who say, this place is not going for Joe Biden this year. There are many, 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 many issues on the ground, a lack of leadership, a lack of organization, an extremely unpopular Democratic mayor in Atlanta who's not going to be able to turn people out. This is not a state that Joe Biden has to have. This is a state that Donald Trump has to have. What do you think could be done with 8 months before an election to turn a state around that was so critical to 2020 success? I'll start with you, Alencia.
Listen, I think there are going to be a lot of surprises between now and November. While for those of us who pay attention to this every single day, it seems like it's tomorrow. But for a lot of voters that I've talked to, I was just in Florida at a conference, they're not paying attention so closely yet. And so we don't know what's going to happen. And I say that as there's opportunity and there's time for the Biden campaign to get on the ground and really talk about, particularly to Black voters, what they have done, what this administration has done. This week is Black Maternal Health Week. They can be doing a lot around maternal health, what they're doing for women's rights. We know Georgia has restrictive abortion laws. Let's use this issue. Conversations around voting rights. I know that in Georgia, there's a bit of frustration there, but this is when they can have one-on-one community conversations to turn that around and also remind the electorate of who Donald Trump is and all of these cases that he has all over the country, including in Georgia.
Rena, Joe Biden won the state by the mysterious 1,100 votes or whatever it is that Donald Trump was talking about. But it's worth pointing out, and this is in ProPublica, close to 100,000 voter registrations were challenged in Georgia, almost all by just 6 right-wing activists in July of last year. New Georgia voting laws make it harder to get access to the ballot. This seems like, I mean, objectively speaking, it is harder to vote in Georgia today than it was in 2020 or 2022. That seems like a ripe opportunity for Republicans to flip the state back to red, right?
And simply put, that's what Republicans wanted. They wanted to make it more challenging for certain people to be at the polls. And that's what they know they get the advantage from. It's a very dirty tactic. And this is, again, just part of the playbook that we see extended. It's nothing new. It's, again, putting into the minds of voters this question. This is how the Republican Party has always operated. Skepticism, deeper skepticism is now there, not just in the rural parts of Georgia.
Right.
It is there they're in these urban sort of communities of Atlanta. And I look at them and I'm thinking, how are they feeling about the issues that are lower than economy, for example? Are they going to come be pro-democracy voters? Are they going to hear my chant that says, your former president, Trump, if you voted for him, you ought to be concerned about him this time around because he wants to dismantle the system. And your fellow citizens in Georgia suffered from that. So why don't you, again, vote for democracy? But we don't know how that message is resonating. There's really not any good empirical data that could lead me to any conclusions on how Republicans can game out better turnout for Trump. So right now it's a bit of a guessing game.
I also think it's really important that you have a large number of Republicans who have flipped the script, right?
Yeah.
They previously hated Donald Trump. Now they love the guy. I'm going to play some sound from that, and Lindsay, get your thoughts on the other side.
It is a horror show when he's left to his own devices, and so you may want his policies, but Trump will not deliver Trump policies. He will deliver chaos.
He knew that the claims of stolen election were false, and yet he decided he was going to try to stay in office by subverting that process. There was very grave wrongdoing here, and I think it's reasonable to say that it falls within the obstruction of a proceeding. Our country can't be a therapy session for, a troubled man like this. He is a consummate narcissist. He will always put his own interests and gratifying his own ego ahead of everything else, including the country's interest.
And now he's endorsing him. Look, Valencia, I will tell you, I have seen air dancers outside of car dealerships that are more reliable than Bill Barr. But I think it's worth mentioning that all of the Republicans who pretty much said that this guy was a danger to everything, democracy, hide your kids, hide your wife, he's the worst thing in the world, have all come back and said they supported him. Is that really going to make much of a difference, or were they kind of already baked into the cake? Because they're not just reflective of these elites. This is regular people who are telling pollsters, I don't like him, but they're going to come back and vote for him. Is that changing anything, or is it really something we already assumed was going to happen in 2024?
Listen, I assume it's something that was already going to happen. There are a lot of Republicans who want to hold on to power. It was Mitch McConnell, who him and Donald Trump barely spoke when Donald Trump was president, and yet he said he's going to vote for him. Now, look, here's my frustration with the Republican Party. There are some, like Barr, like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, the list goes on and on and on, who have been wishy-washy and now support Donald Trump. They know that the base of the Republican Party, in order to win, is very much a MAGA base. But the reality is there are a lot of Republicans out here who constantly question Donald Trump. And my question to them, are you then going to vote for Joe Biden? Because that is your only other option if you are concerned about this person that you were concerned with when he was in office, and then when he was out of office, you were as well. And so it's interesting that you see folks like Barr out here endorsing the Republican ticket now. I will say, I don't think that their endorsement is persuading the Republican base, because remember, Donald Trump has gone off about them and called them rhinos and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see.
We have about 30 seconds, Rena. What percentage of Republicans do you think will jump to Joe Biden? We got 30 seconds.
I'm going to be very frank and just tell you, I don't think that many. I didn't vote in 2020 for Biden thinking I'd do it again this year.
Right.
And now I'm riding with Biden again. This is the moment in which you say, what is more important to you? Is it democracy, preserving certain norms here, or is it just a man? And many of these people like Barr think that they're creating some kind of permission structure for people like them. They're misguided. They're misguided.
Rena Shaw and Alencia Johnson, thank you so much for joining us tonight on The ReidOut.